Thank you for joining us today for the virtual Sunday service with the Center for Creative Living. CCL, a charter of the Universal Church of the Master, has served and supported the spiritual needs of its community here in the Bay Area for over 20 years.
Good morning, good morning. Good morning. I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you so much for coming. I want to, if everybody could just take a nice deep breath and calm down. And I want to explain what's going on when you're a spiritualist. All of the things that are happening in the world affect you. So please, if you're being affected by things that are happening, you don't need to watch the news. You don't need to listen to the news. When you are gotten into being a spiritual being, you become sensitive, and that's positive. But when something negative is going on and you can feel it, you're in charge. You don't have to listen to everybody's problems, especially when they're not happening to you. Now, this is not being selfish. This is just taking a nice deep breath and releasing all of the negativity that you're feeling. And I say this because I woke up in the middle of the night virtually going, oh my God, they're bombing again. I can feel it. And when I did, I just felt like I don't want to face it. I don't want to go to church. I want to cover up and go back to sleep. And so if any of you had that feeling, it's real. I don't want you to think, oh, I'm making this up. No, you're not. You're sensitive because you're a spiritualist, and that's the way you feel.
That explains.
Okay, and that should explain why either you're exhausted or you're feeling like you want to cry, or, I mean, there's so many ways.
I did that part. I did the cry part.
You did the cry part? Okay. Thank you for admitting it. A lot of people feel like, I'm not going to let anybody know that this bothers me.
In a shower house.
Yeah, taking a shower. I don't know how many of you do that. When you take a shower and you visualize all the negativity, you just going down the drain, and that works, and it is very beneficial when you can do that. Well, speaking about beneficial, we are going to have a wonderful Reverend Chris Brown speak to us. But first I want you to realize that we are doing all of this without music today because Janet's sick, Tim's doing something else, and so each one of you has to feel your own music. Because for me, I am not really the best musician around. Because being tone deaf, it's really not fair for me to put you through that. So we're going
but you're enthusiastic.
I'm enthusiastic, that's for sure. But what we are going to do, we're going to start out with our Reverend Chris. And before we do that, does anybody have, you can just come right on up, Chris, and then I'll start talking. Anybody else have something they want to talk about before we start this morning? Anybody have something that they feel is really important that they'd like to share?
Remember to be forgiving and loving.
Yeah, remember to be forgiving and loving.
And that includes you.
There's all three the same, yeah. And the other thing is that as we go through here this morning, every time you just feel like, oh, I can't breathe, breathe. I know that sounds like, oh, of course everybody breathes. No, they don't. You tend to hold your breath. And so just take a nice deep breath.
You want to talk about this? And
I might just say, breathe, okay? And so when I do, that's why. It's like I can feel that. And Cookie, I don't have the program. I'm sorry. I don't know where it went.
So
there it is. No, there it is. There's. Okay. And you were talking about.
October 24th is our second anniversary.
We've been here. This is Gabrielle. Do you realize we've been here 2 years? October 24th, we've been here 2 years. Yeah. I know. Thank you, Corky, for letting us know that. That's pretty exciting. And so, okay.
We're good at commitments.
We're good. Yes, we are. Okay.
Sherry.
And we like everybody to just take a nice deep breath. And do you want people to close their eyes, Chris?
You guys can do whatever works. I have sort of a bit of a trifecta here, a three-part. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I have a three-part commentary. It's been a difficult week in the Middle East, and a lot of that is being felt by us here. And in addition to a general prayer for unity, which is where I go to in difficult times, I also, I personally have been working on teasing apart the details of why things came about in the Middle East. It's of interest to me. And in my teasing apart, there's the populations, right? We have this set of people and that set of people. And then we also have bad actors. And it's really important to me to be conscious of the one population, the second population, and how they are, and keep that distinct from the bad actors. That's what I'm doing. And I also like history, so I can go back and kind of work on it. I just want a structure in case anybody was looking for one. The other thing is, I asked Dottie a couple of days ago, I said I'd like to do the Kaddish, which is the prayer for the people who have died in the Jewish tradition. And we're going to do that. And yes, there will be a little bit of singing. You're going to get a little bit of music. And as I also thought about what I just mentioned about kind of population A and population B, I wanted to make sure that when I come up here that I don't miss the other people who are suffering. So in this case, while I'm going to do a prayer in the Jewish tradition, what I would like to do is just recite, I'm going to read from my phone, a short prayer that's a prayer that's said for the dead in the Islamic tradition. The following is one of the most popular prayers for the dead. O Allah, just God, forgive our living and our dead, those present and those absent, our young and our old, our males and our females. O Allah, whom among us you keep alive, then let such a life be upon Islam, which means peace, and who among us you take unto yourself, then let such a death be upon faith. There are aspects that are really, really important personally to all people affected. And I just call that in with no authority of any kind, except a quick conversation with Amina. Thank you. The Shema. I'm going to start with the Shema. It's always a good place to start. So the Shema is the call to prayer. I'm going to go ahead and say one, and then you go two. Mm-hmm. Okay. And this part is called out loudly. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one.
Baruch Shem Kavod, malchuso leolam vaed.
Blessed is his name, whose kingdom is forever and ever.
And if you were to go to a Jewish service, you would hear that at the beginning. That's calling and kind of setting our intentions and our relationship. This is the prayer. I'm not good at saying it outright. I learned it singing, so I'm going to sing it. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemeh rabach.
Exalted and hallowed be God's great name.
Be'alma divrach irtei v'yamlich malchutei.
In the world which God created according to plan, may God's majesty be revealed.
B'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael.
In the days of our lifetime and the life of all Israel.
Let's remember all Israel is everyone. All Israel is another word for the whole world. Bagala, bagala, uvizman kariv, vehimru amen.
Speedily, imminently, to which we say, Amen.
Yeheshmer rabba mevorach, le'alam ulal me'al maya, yitbarach.
Blessed be God's great name to all eternity.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitparek nadmam v'yitnasei v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemeh dekurasha b'richu.
Blessed, praised, honored, exalted, extolled, glorified, adored, and lauded be the name of the Holy Blessed One.
Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechemata dama miran b'alma v'himru amen.
Beyond all earthly words and songs of blessing, praise and comfort, to which we say, Amen. And would you all join me in saying, Amen.
Amen.
And I'm going to follow this with a song that I always hear following it. And it's a song of peace. Not quite the one Janet does. I haven't trained her on it yet. And it just says, bring peace. Oh, say shalom bimromav. Oh, yaseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Peace to the world.
Thank you so very much. Can you stay just a minute?
Absolutely.
And now, is this a service thing that I would say when you went to an Israeli meeting, greeting? How would you be saying that?
The Kaddish.
Mm-hmm.
The Kaddish, which is a prayer of the extolling of God, is simply traditionally said when people pass. It's also within the service, and they have different rhythms and tunes. Melodies is probably the right word. So if you go to the web and you start looking up, I want to hear the Kaddish. It's really hard to find the one that I did. It's called the Chatzi Kaddish, but there's lots and lots of others with lots and other tunes. So during the Kaddish, during the 1 hour, 1.5 hour service, they may stand up and say the Kaddish, they may sing the Kaddish, they may have it sung to them. It's all, I won't call it a filler because that's not respectful, but it kind of shows up a number of places.
Okay.
And one ought not say it, but in the presence of at least 10 people. That's what a minyan is. A minyan, M-I-N-Y-A-N, minyan, is 10 people. And I'm so pleased to have 10 people.
Yeah.
I can say the Kaddish. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you so very much, Chris. That is so wonderful because it feels so rich. It feels.
It's 5,000 years old.
Yeah, 5,000
Yeah.
years old. And there's just that feeling of resonance about it. Even though I don't understand the words, it just feels so rich. So thank you so much. And if you're interested in a copy, we have a couple here.
I've got a couple to hand out.
If you're interested in it, and because it just is, it hits your heart. And I don't understand the words, but I understand the feeling, and I think that's so important.
I wonder if we can check and see if there's any comments from the Zoom about
Did Zoom
this.
say anything about the Kaddish?
Well, since you asked.
How did I know? As he types
Yeah,
one
how
in.
did you know? Let's see, we had good morning from Germany. We had good morning from the North Bay. Hello, Janet. Hope you're feeling better. She was a bit under the weather. Eileen, good morning, all. West Coast Eileen. Let's see. Janet, good morning to you all. So sorry I cannot be there. Love to you all. And then she chimes in again, beautiful, this was needed. And then Northern Ann, shalom to all. And let's see. From West Coast Eileen, it touches my heart. From Lolly, thank you. I am culturally Jewish and have family in Israel. I am grateful. Very needed.
Thank you so very much. How wonderful. And we're so lucky to have somebody like you, Chris. Thank you so very much. Also, one of the things I want to talk about is every time, as I mentioned earlier, you're in charge of your feelings. It's real easy to forget that when you're spiritual. You can keep letting things happen that tear you down, tear you down, tear you down. Every time you feel something that you can't help, there's nothing you can do about it. Say, God, I release you. You can release it. You can feel it, but you don't have to live it. Do you understand what I'm saying? You will feel because you're an emotional being. That's why you chose UCM. That's why you chose CCL. Because you want to feel the emotions, but don't let them drive you. And it's so difficult sometimes for people. And if you let things bother you to the point that you're not living your life, you're living your fear. So you find ways to handle that. You can either say, I release you, I release you, I release you, which I do. I find that almost all great religions say things in threes. So you can just release it and bless it and send prayers. Because we want you to know that you're staying healthy is one of the most important things. And those of you who have worked with the energy, you know how you deal with energy is how you live your life. So if you keep living negativity, parts of your body start giving away. They give up. They can't keep being positive if you're always saying something negative. And it's the same in relationship. I have a couple that they're fighting all the time. And I said, just don't argue. And the first reaction was, but I'm right.
How's that working for you?
And the partner says, well, I think they're crazy. They're not always right. But what happens is it pulls your energy down until pretty soon, it's such a deep, deep feeling about it. And so for you, honor that you have feelings about things. That's who you are as a spiritual being. But find ways that you can release it. You can say, Jesus, please help me. You can say, Allah, please help me. You can talk to any one of the beings that you feel are there helping you. Please. You can say God, you can say Source, you can say whatever works for you, that, because we all know that there is a God, whatever you call it, and however you deal with it. So can you all do that? Can you all try? Can you all deal with things? Now, if you happen to be in Palestine, or if you happen to be in the Gaza Strip, I mean, there's so many places you could be where you're actually working on things. That's different. You've got different behaviors. But right now, I don't see any of you in that situation. So please deal with what you have so that you can move forward. Okay? We're so lucky to have a wonderful speaker today. I'm always so glad when Joyce Brown comes in and talks to us, because Reverend Joyce Brown always has a story, always has something to say that is incredible. And I have yet to see her follow her speech. So far she hasn't given me her speech yet. Usually she does. And usually I sit with it in front of me. And then when she's done, I look at it and go, that's the speech she was going to give. But I really like best the speech she gave. So I can hardly wait to find out what she's going to say today. Please welcome Reverend Joyce Brown. You can bring it with you. And Reverend Joyce is not only a wonderful speaker, a really good member of CCL, she's also a trustee of the Universal Church of the Master. So I'm so excited about what she's doing and how she's bringing about trusteeship. And did I just make up a word?
I don't know.
I don't either. Mary, is trusteeship a word?
Sure, make anything. Anything will work.
It is today.
We'll make it work for us.
Also,
Okay,
and
there you go, my dear.
since I didn't bring my eyeglasses up here, this should be interesting, don't you think?
Oh, I thought you did it that way all the time.
Well, I do, but I usually bring them in case.
I have some. Gary has some glasses. These
Oh,
are
wait.
just magnifying. Oh.
Yeah, no, Patty found them. Yeah. So, good morning, everyone. Let's start off like we actually have a balance.
Yay!
Glasses. So, the power of no.
Put on your glasses.
No, I'm actually thinking.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, done thinking. When I was growing up in Mississippi, I didn't have any power of no. And I didn't have it as a child. I didn't have it as a kind of teenager. There was no power of no. My parents didn't have it. None of the people I knew had it. They were under the control of the person who owned the plantations that we lived on. So it's important to understand that everything has some sort of foundation for individuals. And I like to talk about where I've come from, where I am, and trying to figure out where I'm going. And the power of no was an amazing thing to have over someone, because you completely controlled their lives. However, they didn't know my parents, apparently. Because of the power of no, we left Mississippi. There was 12 of us, and we left in about 4 stages, because you couldn't leave all at once, because someone would tell on you, or you would be noticed that you were gone, like where are the Browns, right? All 12 are gone or trying to go, and you're always left in the middle of the night. And we left in stages. What the power of no did for our family was amazing. It did a positive thing. You see, not all no's are, you're not going to do it, you've hurt me, you've betrayed me, you've left me out, and all those kinds of things. This was one that The whole family came in stages, Greyhound or in a car if anyone had one or family had one or something like that. And I'm 12 years old, and I am standing in a place surrounded by white folks. You have to understand, I come from a place where I was surrounded by black folks. The white folks owned the land, but they did not surround. It was like a family and a family. But now I'm surrounded. That was really uniquely different. It causes you to figure out how to respond. What are you seeing? How do you react? All these kinds of things is very important to get a sense of the land. I knew the black land. I knew the plantation. I knew the school system down there. But I didn't know this stuff down in Santa Barbara. that was unique in itself. When I discovered the most difficulty I had was with black folks. I said, I don't get this. That was where I had my difficulty. And I was polite to teachers. We were trained. Teacher called your name, you stood up. And you addressed the teacher as Miss or Mr. or Mrs. You didn't just sit there and go, yeah. That wasn't happening. That wasn't happening. You didn't want your parents to know that you did that. We're talking about serious punishment could be coming down on you. So I'm in Santa Barbara dealing with what am I going to do with what I knew on how you respected the teacher and each other. So I had some fights, some close ideas. I just flat out told them I'll meet you in the park after school. You know, I was still Mississippian. You stood up with the other kids if you had to, but they never showed up because the individuals who was trying to intimidate me didn't know how to respond to me saying in my own way, no, you can't do this to me very directly, because that's how I grew up with other black children. If somebody's going to come up on you, you got to hold your point. And if they bad, they show up. If they're not, they don't. End of story. You didn't pursue. So I started thinking about all the things I had learned about this power of no business. The power of no allowed our family not only to move to Santa Barbara, but everybody got jobs. Because we left the power of no to go find something that was going to say, yes, we'll hire you. You're not going to go at the top, but you are going to do the yard work. You are going to do this, the lower levels, but you're going to have a job. Paying a heck of a lot more money to have a better life. The power of no in Mississippi did not allow you to have a better life. Though I must tell you that our family did. We did not live like a lot of the others did. We had comforts, television, radio. We had butane. We weren't cooking with stoves and things like that. My father ran a still. It was one of my most favorite things. But he did. He had a very successful business. My parents early in life ran juke houses. They lived very well. They had slot machines, one of the first families to do all that. They had people like Howlin' Wolf coming in. All of this was acceptable. But what wasn't acceptable was to be able to look somebody in the face that wasn't black and tell them no. That was not acceptable. So I grew up with that. So I learned. So by the time we got to Santa Barbara, California, everyone is getting jobs, making a lot more money than they made before. And that created some issues for some people in my family because now they didn't know quite how to behave. So you begin to change your behavior and to do things you would not have normally done before. First of all, you're driving cars, and you're talking to people on a different level. All of this you have to adjust to. But what this power of no did, this no that stopped being a power of no and became a power of yes, it transformed. it allowed for me to go to university, right? Actually, I went to 2 of them. I was busy. I went to UC Santa Barbara, went to the junior college, and I went to San Francisco State. That may have happened in Mississippi, but the odds were against it. Okay, big odds against it. Now, the power of no allowed for us after about 3 years in Santa Barbara to buy a home. That would not have happened in Mississippi. There was no home to buy. There was no land you could really own. It allowed for my family members in their life to own homes, live very well, earn good income, send children to school. All of this was happening because of one step to move beyond someone else's power of no to go to your power of yes. And this is the way it works. It really does. Sometimes we have to face something, and someone is telling you no, and you look at it. I have heard no so many times in subtle ways. It was amazing. In fact, somebody came right out and said, well, I didn't think you were that smart. I said, what gave you the clue? Well, I wanted to get some information. I was beyond my fighting age at that time. So I used words, though I think I could have went a round or two. And we'll get you going, I can tell you that. But the person didn't understand that I could achieve what I did because I was black and I was from Mississippi. So we had stereotypes and racism, classism, and all of that BS going on all the time. The power of no will help you to grow if you don't let it control you. See, that's the thing about it. Many people let it control them. We did not leave Mississippi and go to Detroit and those places and live in literally like slums full of roaches and things like that, where a lot of black folks went. We went to Santa Barbara. We lived in nice places. We rented nice places. And then within a few years, we bought a home on La Mesa. You would have liked La Mesa. No, really. You walked there, turned there, and there was the beach. Nice garden. When we first moved there, all the people who didn't like black folks moving in left. All the people who didn't give one flying, fill in the word for yourself, came in. Got along just fine. I babysit. I had a great time. I told them stories. Children loved it. Look at the power of no, too. Parents said, well, you're free next Friday? I said, sure. The children enjoyed me. My father was received very well. Nice, kind man. You see, it depends on how you use your skills and how you respond to someone else's sort of negativity. So, where I come from, the power of no simply meant you cannot do anything unless you were given permission. But since my family, my mother and father didn't follow that rule, I just observed and made some decisions of what I was going to do. And I followed it. And that's why I can stand here and tell you this. I did not let someone else's idea who I am or was or could be determine that for me. That was my decision. And my dad's. As you well know, if I start crying, just go with me. I still miss him. My father told me some very important things about how to get around that doggone no. And I share it with you. He told me to always keep my head up so I could see where I was going. I saw a lot of black folks when the plantation owner was talking to them. They were looking there. I never saw my father do that. He looked to the side, but he wouldn't look down. Because to the side means I'm not intimidating you. Okay? My father was a big guy. He was just close to 6'4", big farmer, worked horses, cattle, and all that stuff. Big guy. And there he is, sometimes standing and talking to white folks who was much smaller than him. So how do you keep that person from being intimidated and made afraid? Who would then want to say, you owe me more money than you do, and you can't say no because you can't prove it. You don't look them in the face, because that's intimidation. You look to the side. You yield, but you don't give up who you are. So I learned a lot. Of course, I didn't never look to the side. By the time I figured it out, I said, I'm looking to the side. I just looked straight out. And what that did was individuals who weren't comfortable with me sought ways to interfere with my life, because they didn't like the fact that I was not being a servant to them or subservient to them. So what the power of no does, it can help you to find out who you are by taking a look at what the power of no really means to you, that you feel coming to you. Don't just assume that you know what it is. Take a look at the person, the situation, everything that's happening, and sit with yourself for a moment and say, okay, what is this about? I don't even know this person. Or I do know this person, but I don't know this person. You know, that kind of thing. You can say hello, but you've never sat down to have tea with them. You know, that kind of thing. I discovered that I had a fair number of individuals like that in my life. And when they started to get to know me, they became uncomfortable. And this was not only whites, but also blacks. I was utterly fascinated by it. And I said, well, why are the black folks having an issue with me? Well, I wasn't acting the way I was supposed to act coming from Mississippi. I said, well, excuse me for a minute. They themselves had this little line of where they weren't in Mississippi, but yet they were in Santa Barbara, and they had established themselves. And I said, but that establishment that they had created was one that I should defer to them. And I wouldn't. And so that caused some problems. But then again, you know, I survived Mississippi. I could deal with that. What I also discovered, that along the way, that the wisdom that I had learned from the power of no was really amazing. What it is, it's a foundation. You can't look at it as something sucking you in like quicksand or something, or you're chained. You look at it as wisdom. This is a teaching. What am I looking at? And how am I responding to this will determine my outcome. If I'm always agitated and angry, then I'm going to be an agitated and angry person who's going to get in my way. So I learned how to I learned how to keep me subdued is what I did. In my early days, I had a little bit more fire about certain things because people just irritated the big H out of me. So once I figured out what I was doing and proceeded with caution and respect, suddenly I got people who were before talking about was that brown girl. At first, I don't know why, but that did make me laugh when they said it. I said, what brown part are you talking about? And they said, what? I said, well, what brown part are you talking about? And they couldn't answer me. I said, okay. I said, so what are you talking about? Well, you think you're better than me. And I said, well, I know I am Joyce C. Brown, and I know what I'm about. I'm not about you, so I don't think that works. That person never spoke to me again. You see, sometimes saying no will close doors. Other times saying no will open some, because someone can't believe you said no to them. they said, wait a minute, are you saying no? He said, yes. Oh, well, why are you saying no? And then you tell them, oh, that's not what I meant. I said, well, what do you mean? Because what I heard is that for me to be a part of this, you get to tell me what to do and I have to do it. And I'm saying to you, no, will not do that. There are all kinds of ways to look at this thing called no. And it's not just one way. So sometimes when something is coming towards us, it's really important to stop for a moment before you decide to go off on it. And take a look at it and say, but sometimes we still go off on it. But then we still have to take a look at what triggered us, what came at us from that saying, unrelated. You see, it can be unrelated. And then we stop and say, okay, that was familiar. It reminded me of something else. My dad was a storyteller. He went to 3rd grade, didn't get to finish. He always regretted it. I went to school for my father. I didn't go for me. And yeah, amazing man. I used to stay from school. I wouldn't go, and I'd spend the day with him and cook him breakfast, and we'd go for walks. And then he'd say, Joyce C. And calling me Joyce C was very important because my father seldom used names. With me, he didn't call me Joyce C unless I was to really listen. And I'd say, yes, Daddy. He'd say, you going to school tomorrow? I said, yes, Daddy. He said, well, then. And we go on and have a very nice day. I did not do the strength of a power of no by staying at home because I knew what he was going to do. He was going to want to know, why am I sitting there? But I couldn't think of any place else I'd rather be that day. You see? And so I said no to going to junior college and yes to my dad. You see how this works? It's not an absolute, but it has its fine points, and it has its kindness, it has its compassion, it has its wisdom and teachings. It has everything that we can possibly think of. It's in it. We just have to learn how to work the power of no, to turn it around to something else. And we can get the most amazing yeses you've ever seen. I defied everything and achieved my double masters. I defied it because no one in my family had ever done it. They quit school, they got jobs, they had families. They weren't going to bother with that. But all of them would say, well, you're still going to school, right? I said, yes. It's okay. That's all they would say. They didn't encourage me. They didn't offer me anything. They just wanted to know if I was still going. I had no idea that they were really impressed by it all because nobody ever told me. But they told all their friends. So when I would meet people, they knew everything there was to know about me. And I'm standing there going, who is this person? It was one of their buddies, and they said, oh, is this the sister? And I'm going, okay, I don't know what it is, but I'm sure I didn't do it. I haven't only been in this house 5 minutes. My family, in their own way, took pride in me of something they didn't get to do. Between the ages of 16 and 18, they were married, that kind of thing. And the journey became one of improving their lives, and they all did. Business, homes, all that kind of stuff. They succeeded very well. They said no to what you can't do as a black person who is undereducated. They said no to what you can do living in Santa Barbara, California. They said no to the stereotypes. And they just simply said yes. by transforming what was into what they desired it to be. That's the whole idea of the power of no. Power of no becomes yes when you understand that your yes really is a combination of a no yes thing. You are saying no to something, and then you're proving what you can do with it, and it becomes that no yes thing. And that was what I saw in my family. No matter what member, that's what I saw. So I just wanted to talk about that because I really enjoy it. Always have. And it messed with Dottie. Do I have time to tell a quick story?
Sure. As long as it's not about me in our early days.
Oh, that's, I guess I'm done then. I had a good one going on. Okay, it's a quick story. My father was a storyteller, so amongst other things, and he would talk about events that had happened in his life and how he had learned from it. And he told me a story. I didn't understand what it was till I got much older. And he told me a story about what people would do when they were getting ready to run to freedom. And they would sing this little story called Chuck-a-Luck, Honey and Tea. Bobtail rabbit in the hollow tree. Me-lay, way over yonder on that hill. Me-lay. And then they would tell the next part of the story. Out in the woods lived a rabbit in a hollow tree. And the mother buzzard would fly over and sing to the rabbit. And she would sing, Chuck-a-luck, honey and tea. Bobtail rabbit in a hollow tree. Me-lay, way over yonder on that hill. Me-lay. And she'd come and do that every day. And the rabbit would sing that song back to her. And then one day she came and caught the rabbit outside the hollow tree. And the rabbit said, don't you want to get even with me for all the time I've taunted you? Don't you want to throw me into the briar patch? And don't you want to spin me around and around and throw me to the briar patch? Long, long. You know? And so she did it. Spun him around and around and threw him in the thicket. And then she waited, and she tossed her head from side to side, and she tossed her head from side to side. She was tossing and looking and listening. And then she heard, Chuck-a-luck, honey and tea. Bobtail rabbit in a hollow tree. Me-lay, way over yonder on that hill. Me-lay. Daddy said that the moral to the story was that a rabbit in the hand was one in the briar patch. But guess what? That's the same story that told slaves that they were going to run to freedom that night. That they were going to escape. So it seemed like they were just telling a little story to amuse the children so they could laugh and giggle and entertain because everybody had worked hard. But it was a story, and he used to tell stories with little morals in them, and I have a collection of them, about how black folks ran to freedom. And so guess what the power of no is about? It's about running to freedom. Thank you.
And you didn't even look at it this time. You went beyond yourself, Joyce. Sometimes you even pretend to read it, you know?
What does C stand
What?
for? What does C stand for? Joyce C. Brown.
It doesn't stand for anything. I was born by a midwife, brought me in a tornado. I love that part. And they named me Joyce C. Southerners, black people did that, so did whites. RC, BC, JC, DC. They would have these initials, and then sometimes you'd have a first name and an initial and a last name. It wasn't uncommon. But one of the things that happened in 1960, 61, something like that, is that someone passed a law that said that all black folks had to have front real names. They came to the black schools, and if your name was JC, you were supposed to get a name, and the fathers and the mothers said, no, that's my son's name. Yeah. We don't know quite why they did it. Nobody ever told us anything as to why that whomever the power would be would say that if you were a black person, a child in school, you had to have two front real names, other than another way to control you and keep track of you. Anybody can be a JC, an RT, you know, or that kind of, but how many Lorenzos did you know down in the South? I only knew one, that was my brother. You know, that kind of thing. And so my name is Joyce C. Brown. And then one time I changed it, I put Carolyn in there. I sort of liked the sound of it, Joyce Carolyn Brown. And then one day I decided, but that's not my name. So I went back to Joyce C. I went back to me. Yes.
Joyce, when you moved to
Joyce, why don't you come back to the mic if you're going to be answering questions so people on Zoom can hear.
Oh, sorry.
when you moved to Santa Barbara, did you have a strong Mississippi accent?
Yeah.
And how did that play into it?
I had a very strong Mississippi accent. How that played into it is that I did not sound like anybody in the state of California, it seemed. And I was so unique that the teachers liked it for whatever reason, because I with a certain amount of politeness and respect for teachers. It was all in the name. They were a yes ma'am, no sir. You did not, so yeah, what, you didn't do that. And so the name stood out. If I talked to a good friend down in Pickens, Mississippi, give me 5 minutes and I call you on the phone, you'll think I'm back there. It just comes up in you. And, but yeah, I did have that.
Did you have to work hard to get rid of the Mississippi?
No, it just happens because you're surrounded mostly by people who are non-Mississippi. And so you're hearing the basic English the way it's being said by those who said they're doing correct English. There was no y'alls. And no one was saying, how come, all that kind of stuff. It was just regular, you, us, that kind of thing. And so you're reading it. It didn't matter in Mississippi what I read. It was how we spoke in our home and how we spoke to each other on the playground when we were playing or when we were working together. In the school, we had to do what they said, but outside of it, we related to each other totally different. And that was one of the things that made it difficult to control black folks wanting to do things, because there was two different languages going on. And so sometimes if you wanted someone not to understand you, you speak very Southern. They didn't have any idea what you were saying. They know they didn't, because the words sometimes also had some African carryovers in them, like with the stories, animals as living beings doing things, teaching you. All of that was very African. And my father was teaching me all the time, all these wonderful teachings that I have a collection of. And in the school system, I had to obey. So I did. Outside the school system, I was my daddy's daughter. And that was very important to me.
Okay.
Yeah, but thanks for asking. It's very few people do. Sometimes I go back into the Southern thing and I don't know I've done it. And somebody said, what did you just say?
Can you give an example? Just say something So Mississippi and the way that's done?
Well, it doesn't really happen like that. It's about having
Not
a,
about the
no,
porch.
really, you have to be hearing it. It's like with any language, it's about hearing. You hear it and something awakens in you and it shuts down what I'm doing now, and this past will come up. So I'd need to have Ursine on the phone, then
Well,
we could do it.
What about if you talked about like the taints walking past the porch?
Oh, the Haints?
Taints, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, ghosts, you call them ghosts. We call them Haints. And yeah, and they did,
On the porch.
on the poach. And don't nobody know what that was either. They said, what's a poach? I said, what? Because I was just being myself, and they said, a poach. I said, oh, porch. And they said, yes. I said, okay. I said, we had a front porch. Yeah, it's like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And somebody would like to pass the basket, please? And thank you so much, Joyce, as always. That was absolutely wonderful. And one other thing I want to mention, my father, when he was born, was DL. And he was born in Idaho. And it was DL. And it wasn't until he turned 16 and the government said you have to have real names that he became Del Lorenzo. So yeah, it wasn't just white folks or black folks, it was just folks because they were going into the service and they wanted to be able to have a name. And so that's what happened with that in our family anyway.
That might have been, Dottie, why they did it, you know, but they made sure that the girls had to do it too, do that too.
Right.
So since, but it would be one way to keep track.
Yeah, when you've got a lot of people, it's a better way to keep track and all sorts of reasons, yeah. Thank you. Okay,
So we get the sacrament, the giving to the ministry.
you just lead us in it.
Giving to the ministry from which I receive my spiritual support and nurturing is an affirmation and consciousness of the truth that Spirit is the prospering power enriching every area of my life.
We've only been doing it for 16 years and I still don't remember it. But thank you so much, Corky, for leading us in that. I really do appreciate it.
I didn't know I had memorized it so well because I really can't see it.
I want you all to just take a moment and before we close the service, I'd like you to all take a nice deep breath. And as you close your eyes, I want you to feel the energy of the room. Feel that positive and loving energy. Be thankful that we have people like Joyce to talk to us about what was happening, where she was, and how things were different. So many of you came from different places. They have different ideas, different emotions, different religions. And I want to let you know that you are so welcome here. And as you feel that sense of being welcome, realize that Spirit is everywhere. Spirit is in this building. Spirit is in this place in San Jose. Spirit is in your home. But most importantly, Spirit is in your heart.
Yes.
Never let go of that sense you have of being one with the Mother, Father, God. It's your energy that makes us feel good about who we are. But it starts out with realizing how great you are. You can say no if somebody tries to put you down. You can say no to people who say negative things about you. You are a gift on this planet. And we thank you all so very much for joining us here today. And we look forward to seeing you next week. And know that if you want to give a talk, if you have something to say that you feel is important, interesting, or spiritual, fascinating, please let Reverend Corky Whitaker know, and she will line you up to give a talk. We want to hear your connection with Spirit, because you are one of the most important people on the planet. And so it is.
So it is.
Have a wonderful week.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I just wanted to draw people's attention, at least for me, after the talk, I felt a personal energy shift.
Hello.
You know,
I
inside
was
me.
just,
And,
thank you.
I
Just
just
humming
think-
everywhere.
Yes.
Just humming everywhere. And now that I've moved, it's like, ooh, look, we're gonna get out of her. No, I was like, thank you, Joyce.
You're very welcome.
Thank
Yes.
you. My
Very
whole,
welcome.
my whole body is
That's
moving,
it.
so.
Got it.
Thank
Sometime
you,
we'll have
Joyce.
to talk about the 7 years of hell when we lived in North Carolina.
Hey, that's a good talk. 7 years of hell in North Carolina. Sounds like a time to me.
It's
Like a
open with,
movie and a song.
you're not from around here, are you, dear?
Oh, yeah, and then what
Oh,
church
yes.
what church do you go to?
Oh.
And then what church do you go to?
Oh, yes. Well, if you were open, if you hadn't signed up for a church,
What?
then you could go to their church. Then you were worth talking to. They could bring you into their church, you were worth talking to. So I finally picked a church, went there one time, and then just said that's where I went, so they stopped it, because otherwise, you know, they certainly weren't interested in me. And and the way I treat black people was so, I mean, you know, nobody in this room, it's not how we were brought up, it's not how we think. We try to fill our hearts with the right stuff. So it would never occur to me to have some black person step into the gutter so that I would stay on the sidewalk, you know. We can both fit. This is ridiculous, but it was not my finest hour in the South, I'll tell you that. Well, no, they never got over me. They loved Tom. Tom could smile and do the things that, you know, I would think were perfectly reasonable, and they wouldn't get upset about them. If I did the same thing, I'm sure it oozed out of my pores what I was thinking about them at the time.
And
You
you
know,
probably
it just
said
didn't
some of
work.
it too.
Yes. I didn't have somebody to teach me to say no at the right time and hold on to the ground. You know?
The learning of that is really, it's you have to be conscious of it, and you have to think about it. And I moved from Brainerd, Minnesota to East Oakland, on East 14th Street, and
Dementia shock.
well, I didn't think anything of it, because I was from Brainerd, Minnesota, and I didn't know what the hell. And a woman said to me in the grocery store, "We don't like your kind here."
Oh.
And I just went, "What kind?" I mean, seriously, what kind?
Yeah, what kind?
And what-
Because I never, ever thought like that.
It's not in us somehow that they, I think it's in the water down there. You know, we got out right away. It doesn't fit. And we never lived there full time, but I had an experience that was very helpful to me because I am so outspoken and difficult. And a woman was just outrageous to the person who was assigned to the ladies' room or whatever, and talked to her terrible. And so I stepped in and explained to the woman that, you know, it may have been how you were raised in the South, but the world isn't only the South, and what you're doing is, you know, blah, 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 blah. And we got a little, and ran out, and the gal who I had thought I was defending said, "I need to tell you, honey, you're gonna go away, and I have to stay here."
Yeah.
And so it was really a good lesson. Sometimes you think if my beliefs are such and such, I should jump in and say.
Yeah.
But you need to look around and make sure nobody else will pay the price. So that was a really good lesson for this loudmouth.
No, but civil rights was the same. That was why you seldom saw people in those areas protesting, because they may have had minimal work, but they had it.
Right.
Mhm.
And so when all the white folks, black folks, Hispanic, you pick any race you want, left, they were left now
There.
with all of that nasty
Anger
stuff being
and-
taken
yes,
out
yeah.
on them.
You bet. They were gonna make you pay for
Yeah.
how that they felt when the other
That's
happened.
right.
That was a very good lesson for me.
Yeah, and I knew people who didn't get that. I said, you don't get it. You're going down there to help people, but they still have to stay there.
Right.
And then you go home.
Then you go
Then you
back
go home
home.
and start
Yeah.
your life
Yeah.
and have your job.
You're going back to
and
California
you,
or wherever,
And they're
yes.
gonna fix you by you not having a job and
That's
you're not
right.
having medical care and
Yep.
Or
your
they don't
baby's
pay you.
dying because there's
Or
no
they'll pay
coming
you
up
less,
with
they
your
won't
birth.
tip you.
Yeah, all
And
of
we all
that.
go home.
All of it.
Yep,
Mhm.
name it, we can have a list that's 50 miles
Pages.
long
Exactly.
around what would
50
happen
miles long.
to the black folks who were there, that they showed any sign of, I wanna be making more than 25 cents or 50 cents an hour.
Yeah.
Or having to work all week and have you take half the money claiming I owe you. That shit was going on for, we
It's
done
still
it
going on.
We're still on Zoom.
Well, I'm
It's a
fine.
different
I
kind of
said that
church,
word.
Dick.
But anyway, a lot of things could happen to the people who had to live in these towns
Yes.
and the cities and whatever else. They had to deal with police, they had to deal with the people in power, because they own mostly everything. And so people meant well, but somebody did not go in and get a good survey and say, what do you believe will happen once we come through and we know what's
Right.
going on here? And have someone say, it will get worse when you leave.
Yes.
The police will get worse when you leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is what happened.
I would like to add a very different slant. We were in Virginia, and I saw something I've never seen in California. These two women were pushing a double stroller, and there were twins in the stroller. And the twins were biracial, and a black grandma was pushing one of them, and a white grandma was pushing the other. And they were chatting, and as they were pushing the babies down the street. And I thought, no more how integrated we are here in California. I've never seen anything that beautiful. And that wasn't that many years ago. So I think a lot of it has changed just in the last generation
Yes.
from what it was. And that to me gave hope
Yeah.
to the idea that things are getting better. And it's taken an awful long time, but at least it's moving forward. And even just looking at the Senate and the different places now where there is color, I think we can look at the past, but I think right now we've got to start praising the future and the people that have the spirit and the guts to break down some of those barriers.
But how do you let go of
Just
the anger?
remember, if you're gonna do a lot of breaking down, you better plan on staying around. Because, it really does,
I mean,
what happened more, I mean, it was, for me to learn to keep my mouth shut was a real life lesson.
Right.
But once the black people that were there, it was at the time of Obama's first election. And so there were a lot of people coming in to get out the vote, that sort of thing. And they understood pretty quick that even though I was a loudmouth, he could come tell me anything I needed to hear, and I would stop and listen and hear it. And I realized how often we made that mistake. And and one of the things is we were in a small town. Raleigh was probably 30 miles away. It's altogether different in Raleigh.
Right.
That's very different than a small town that everybody said, if your great-grandfather wasn't born there, you weren't part of it,
Right.
I mean, that's just the way it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have to close the service so you can.
Thank you.
I thought we did, sorry.
Don't be sorry. I'm so glad we have a choice. We have a chance for people to talk. That is wonderful. Okay, Ed, we're about to say goodbye to people on Zoom, and who do we have?
Well, now it's Ann, Jen Lee, Janet, Donna C, Jeannie, Laura, Lauren, Wally, Milan, and Sky. And there's a little bit that they put in. Let me just go back on this. So let's see. From Milan, good morning, everyone. From Ann C. up north, Joyce C., thank you for sharing your wonderful stories. You have such a wonderful way of teaching us through the wisdom of your father. And then from Janet, beautiful, powerful message, ... From West Coast, Eileen, thank you. Your story and voice are soothing for the soul. All amen that. From Jeannie, delightful. Thank you, Joyce C. From Chen Lee, what an inspiration. Joyce C, thank you so much. Back to Milan, beautiful stories. From Donna Christensen, wonderful talk, Joyce. I always enjoy your sermons. Hugs. From Maria V, as always, nice stories. Thank you. Milan again, thank you. And then in comes Sky. Thank you, Joyce C. Brown. It is such an awesome treat to hear you tell your stories. And a love emoji, no, actually a smiling emoji. I love you, Mama Boon. And from Lolly, thank you all in caps for a beautiful all in caps service. And Lolly put in more than an emoji, it's pranams with this incredible puff of hair over the head. I don't have the background to tell you exactly what it is. From Donna C, take care everyone. I couldn't find the chat at the start. Be well, but I do recognize a red heart emoji. This one was really fun. That's from me channeling myself.
So how many
Thank you
people
so
were
much.
online?
Thank you so much. And thank you all so much for coming. We really do appreciate it. Corky, do we have coffee today?
Coffee we do.
We have coffee.
Right here.
If you want to sit around and have a cup of coffee, we'd like to have you. Thank you so very much. And we'll be talking to you next week. Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, everybody. Bye, everybody.
Good day.